Character design in games has always been kind of a delicate subject, but in recent years I find that more and more conversations surrounding this topic are becoming increasingly more volatile. One of the biggest debates in the community has always been around female characters in revealing or sexy outfits. Again, this isn't a conversation that started yesterday, but since I opened this channel, and because we mostly focus on game aesthetics, I've often been asked what my take on this is, or do I actually care if a female character is wearing skimpy clothing? Do girls in general not like games where the characters are wearing revealing outfits? Before we get started, hi, my name is Angelika, and this is going to be kind of a shorter midweek video. I was reminded about this whole conversation because of the character reveal for Emma Frost and all the controversy surrounding that on Twitter, so I wanted to get my thoughts out there before I forget about it again. Just on Emma Frost, there's a bunch of different takes out there. Some people are saying that even though she's meant to be a more risque character, the game shows her in outfits that are too revealing and it doesn't fit her character. Other people just don't like her haircut. Like, there is a whole world of discussion here. I'm not a huge Marvel fan myself, so I wouldn't really know, which is why you guys can fill me in on your thoughts about that particular character reveal. But we're going to focus on this strictly from the standpoint of revealing clothing. There are many ways to approach this topic, and I think that the best thing to do here is to talk about it from a place of balance. First thing, yeah, I do think there are probably people that are genuinely bothered about that sort of thing, and not just women. I think that there are definitely men that don't like those kind of games or they wouldn't play them. However, I also think that there's a lot of fake outrage out there, particularly in places like Twitter, something to gauge likes and a lot of attention, blowing things out of proportion when it's really not that deep. The reason for that is because it's kind of in our nature to engage with something negative over something positive. It's kind of like the psychology behind reviews or ratings, and now I know this from my days of working in online customer support, but I found that more often than not, people will leave a negative review as opposed to a positive review. Now, that's not to say that people don't leave good reviews when they've had a great experience with a customer service rep, but just more often I've seen it happen that people will not go out of their way to give praise, but they will if they want to give a complaint. And that is why I think with this particular discussion, more often than not, you might see a lot of people up in arms about this sort of thing, and I think that a lot of others might follow suit because these sort of posts might get a lot of likes on Twitter. It's a safe opinion to have if so many people seem to agree with it, even if it's not one that you necessarily formed yourself. I just want to say this from my point of view, and I know that a lot of other women will say the same. No, we do not care about revealing clothing in video games. Nor do we find it offensive. In fact, I think that games with such characters can often have a special appeal for a female audience, which I will explore in this video. But going back to balance for a second, look at one of the most controversial games with revealing outfits, Mortal Kombat, particularly Mortal Kombat 9. There's a special focus on certain physical aspects of the female characters in this game. The outfits are what they are, they do really leave very little to the imagination. But I have talked about this before. We're looking at a game where you can break all of your opponent's bones, take out their spine, and eat their brain. Are revealing outfits really the biggest concern here? It's meant to be over the top, comically so, which I think they've definitely achieved. And this is very on brand for Mortal Kombat. This is a game that had the US Senate hold hearings around game violence, and eventually this led to the creation of the ESRB rating system.
Two of the most violent new video games. First, we have Mortal Kombat, which is a martial arts contest involving digitized characters. We're going to show two versions of the game. In the first segment, which is Sega's version, blood splatters from the contestants' heads. When a player wins, the so-called death sequence begins. The game narrator instructs the player to finish, and I quote, finish his opponent. The player may then choose a method of murder, ranging from ripping a heart out to pulling off the head of the opponent with spinal cord attached.
The outfits are pretty in line with the iconic look of the characters, and with that comes a lot of cosplay potential. I would say that the girls from Mortal Kombat are probably some of the most popular characters for cosplay. And the reason for that is because I think it's a generally easy thing to put together for cosplay. In my opinion, if all women were extremely against such character design, they wouldn't cosplay these characters. There wouldn't be any appeal. But in this case, I'm not just talking about professional cosplayers. I'm talking about girls who don't do any sort of content creation, but they will buy these outfits for themselves for Halloween parties and all sorts of other fancy dress opportunities. I've seen this on a website like Shein, where people have purchased these outfits and left reviews. Something like, loved the outfit, wore it to a Halloween party, etc. I've even cosplayed this myself for a photo shoot. You'll often hear people say stuff like, women do this for male attention, and I mean, sure, if you are a professional cosplayer, obviously you're gonna want attention and appreciation for your work. That's the reason that you post it online, that's the whole point. But people really underestimate the element of buying an outfit like that for yourself, literally just to dress up and feel good about yourself, especially if it's a franchise or a character that you're really a fan of. There's something euphoric about looking in the mirror and seeing yourself in one of their iconic looks. And you know what it is? It's just a bit of fun. I know a major argument here is around RPGs, where they do this thing that male characters will have all this cool armor that really protects them, and then the female variant will be kind of like a swimsuit. And sure, I can understand that. For example, in World of Warcraft there are several pieces like that, but at the same time your female character can also look like this. So there are options. Even given the options, very often I've seen girls that will do transmogs with those other pieces, just because it's fun. I was asked specifically to give my opinion on the character from Stellar Blade, and I'll be honest, the reason that I wouldn't play Stellar Blade isn't anything to do with the outfits that the character wears, but it's more so the game itself. Like, I'm not really a fan of JRPGs, and I know that this is a game that was made in Korea, but this particular art style is something that doesn't appeal to me. Like, I was never, a Final Fantasy kind of girl, and this is what it sort of reminds me of with the face. I do make an exception for Souls games, though. But this personally doesn't appeal to me. That and that kind of hyper-futuristic sci-fi genre, I just don't really play those kind of games all the time. I have a few exceptions, but I know that there's plenty of girls that would play it. For example, I'm not a fan of anime, but loads of other girls are. And there's like these anime figurines that have very detailed assets of the female characters. Someone like Boa Hancock from One Piece, I believe. I've seen girls have this as part of their streaming setup, or just in general, they buy it for their room. Also, it's a very popular cosplay character. And you can't talk about this without mentioning Tomb Raider. But again, I've never had a problem with this. She is a physically fit character, usually in very hot countries, jumping around, climbing stuff. I don't really see it as oppressive or objectifying. If anything, it's kind of like gym inspiration. I asked my mom about this topic and I showed her some of the more controversial characters, and she said exactly the same thing that I'm saying right now. Like, it's a game, they're fictional characters, there might be more of a fitness inspiration, cosplay inspiration. It's more of a good thing. Very often you'll see this sort of thing criticized for appealing to the male fantasy. Alright, but there's also plenty of stuff that appeals to the female fantasy in media. Are we meant to just make stuff that doesn't appeal to anybody? Because they've tried that, and surprise, surprise, it appealed to nobody. Here's my take. Adults looking at other adults is completely fine. As long as they are adults and fictional, and they fit in the world that they're in, and it makes sense that they look the way that they do, I don't really have a problem with it. It would be a different story if they took a person from real life and disrespected them somehow, and maybe over-sexualized them for the purpose of making them more appealing. But when it's fiction and it's clearly fun and appealing for more than just men, I really don't see the harm. One thing that I do have a very hard stance on is anything to do with children, however. That's where myself and I think every other decent person will draw the line. I can't actually think of any games that have done this with children, but I know this is a thing in certain anime, and maybe if there are games out there that are based on this anime, that could potentially be a thing. I don't know, it's nothing that would have ever been on my radar, but I think that this is where the outrage should be directed, if it does exist. I always hated these shows like Toddlers and Tiaras, where you had the little girls in like layers and layers of makeup, and they made their faces look so much more grown up, and then their moms would teach them how to do all of these poses, and it clearly appealed to a very specific audience that you don't want. It's gross. They did not let children be children. And a lot of mommy and daddy influencers do this as well, where they dress their kids a certain way or put them in certain situations, which again will appeal to this particular audience. I hate all of that. And I know that this is slightly off topic, but since we're talking about it, I'll just mention it. The internet is not a place for children. I will never show my daughter's face on camera. As someone who puts themselves out there the way that I do, I know all of the baggage that comes with it. There's some really messed up people online that can say some really horrible, unthinkable things, but I can handle that. I don't care about all of it. Like, the difference is that I can take it, and I, as an adult, made the conscious decision to make content online. My daughter, however, did not. And when she's old enough to make the informed and conscious decision about whether or not she wants to be online, it'll be absolutely her decision. But yeah, to summarize, myself and many other women do not have any problem with sexy game characters. Everybody likes looking at people that look good. People like to dress up as people that look good. It's for fun, and at the end of the day,
it's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
And that's that for today's video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. As always, a big shout out to my channel members. Thank you guys for all of your support, and I'll see you all in the next video. Be seeing you. Bye!